If this world were a room, then where I stand is the darkest corner of the wall that no one wants to sweep. Welcome to Barrow in Furness, a dead end in the truest sense. A one-way road leads you to the end of the peninsula, where if your car runs out of gas, you officially become a part of this town. Look behind me. That is Devonshire Dock Hall, a gigantic steel fortress hiding the most advanced nuclear weapons on the planet. But just turn the camera 180 degrees, and you will see a completely different reality. The crumbling red brick houses, the boarded up shops, and the eyes filled with nothing but despair. Here, the decay is no longer just in the newspapers. It is present in every damp wall and in the breath of the shipbuilders, those who are silently trading 13 years of their lives for survival. It's ridiculous that the system is ready to spend billions to protect national security, yet it allows insecurity to gnaw at the very meals of the people who create it. Just a few steps into this dead end, you will see the glamorous facade of England completely stripped away, revealing stark corners that few dare to mention. Don't believe it? Let's go back to the journey starting from Jubilee Bridge to see clearly what is really happening at the end of the world. I'm standing on the Jubilee Bridge, where gusts of wind can reach 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, enough to blow you off into the sea if you're not heavy enough. People call this the stubbornest town in England, but I call it the end of the world, literally. Do you see the road over there? That's a one-way street. If you go to Barrow, either you have something extremely important to do, or your car ran out of gas and you're stuck here. No one accidentally passes through this gigantic dead end. Look at the stream of people walking across the bridge, the shadows trudging in blue protective suits, heads bowed low, stagger in the gusty wind of level 7. That is the Green Army of BAE systems. Every morning, these thousands of people cross this rusty iron bridge to create machines capable of wiping out an entire nation. But when the shift ends, they return to the damp brick houses whose total value is less than a single propeller of the ship they just welded. £13.7 billion contributed to the economy each year. But the life expectancy of people in the poorest area, right at the foot of this factory, is nearly 13 years lower than that of the wealthy, a telling figure, or rather, a silent death sentence. Leaving the biting wind of the bridge, I slipped inside Barrow Market to find a bit of warmth. A completely contrasting world emerges. The loud calls of fishmongers blend with the rich aroma of baked goods. Here, you will meet the true Barrovians, those with rugged appearances, tattoos, and wearing worn-out work clothes. I ordered a plate of pie and peas, a meat pie drenched in gravy served with mashed peas. It's cheap, hot, and greasy, but this is also the only raw fuel that helps the workers here endure through the winter. But the feeling of a parallel society becomes even clearer when stepping out of the market. Delving deeper into the hind pool area, reality will slap me in the face. The endless rows of red brick houses from the Victorian era, with peeling walls and thick green moss clinging to them due to the sea salt, every little detail tells the same story. This place has been neglected for too long. The fact is that Barrow is in the top 3% of the poorest areas in England. Can you imagine what it's like to live in houses boarded up completely? It's no different from a sealed coffin. The final stop of the morning was at the intersection of Duke Street, where the statue Spirit of Barrow stood tall. This is the moment when all the pieces come together on the same map. The bronze statue depicting workers straining to labor, but set against the backdrop of the surrounding abandoned shops, does not resemble a tribute. Rather, it looks like a monument to a past that has collapsed. In the past 10 years, while the national population has increased, young people in Barrow have been leaving in droves, causing the population to decline by nearly 4%. Do you find it ridiculous? We build steel fortresses to protect national security, but leave the people who create them to struggle with the insecurity of making ends meet. Barrow is not poor because it lacks money, it is poor because that billion-pound river of money flows through here without anyone being allowed to take a sip. I wonder, if you had to choose between being proud to protect the world and having healthy lungs to live an extra 13 years, what would you choose? Don't rush to answer. Because in Barrow, it seems that people don't have the right to choose. They are born, breathe in metal dust, and accept it as part of their heritage. If you want to continue with me in uncovering the stark truths that travel maps never mention, just gently press the subscribe button below. Consider it a ticket for us to go to places where the reality is even colder than the sea breeze outside. And now, this cold has started to seep through my thickest coat. We can't live forever on bravado. It's time to find the real meal of the survivors in this town. The clock hands inch towards noon. And in Barrow, it's not just time, it is a silent migration. From the steel arch gates of BAE Systems, a cascade of people in reflective vests began to pour onto the road, creating a vibrant but out-of-place strip against the grey sky. You are witnessing the heartbeat of this entire town. If the nuclear submarine is the heart of Barrow, then these workers are the cells tirelessly keeping that heart beating. But just look at how they eat, and you'll see that the real harshness doesn't lie in the steel blocks, but in the way people have to fuel themselves to continue dedicating their efforts to them. I stopped by a small bakery right by the water's edge, where the smell of fried fat and steaming hot vapor were trying to fend off the chill from the Irish Sea. Here, lunch is a luxury concept. People call it refueling. I ordered a meat and potato pie drenched in a greyish gravy, a dish that any shipyard worker here could eat with their eyes closed. It lacks the finesse of London cuisine, it only has weight. A dense block of dough and meat, enough to keep a man standing in the oxygen-deprived submarine compartment for the next 8 hours. This is a calculated irony. They are assembling the most advanced electronic devices of humanity with stomachs filled with the cheapest and most basic food. A system that can spend billions on an acoustic positioning system, yet leaves the hands that create it to survive on meals worth less than £5. Observing the workers sitting around me, I suddenly noticed a subtle division. There are young engineers in clean suits discussing technical specifications, and there are long-time welders with the dark marks of electric sparks still etched on their skin. Barrow contributes billions of pounds to the GDP, but the average salary of the people here is still nearly 20% lower than the national average. The massive flow of money from the Ministry of Defence through this town is like a high-speed train that never stops at the local station. It only leaves noise and dust behind. The people of Barrow are like treasure guardians of a kingdom they are never allowed to step into the palace of, when the last piece of cake lingered with the salty taste of sea salt and grease. I realized I had begun to absorb the stubbornness of this place. It's not the stubbornness of a hero, but the stubbornness of those who have nothing left to lose but their work. If you find this pace of life a bit too heavy, perhaps it's because the truth is always harder to swallow than a pie and peas. And if you want to accompany me to see where these workers return after a tiring day, don't forget to hit that little follow button so we don't lose each other in the fog of Cumbria. But let's not talk about the warmth of home just yet, because when the crowds disperse into the streets after the break, I will take you deeper into the red brick scars, where the squalor is no longer just a statistic on a report, but a reality devouring the dreams of the people here. Leaving the noisy steel workshops, I ventured deep into the heart of the red brick scars, the Hind Pool area, and the streets surrounding Dalton Road. If the morning is overwhelmed by the might of heavy industry, then the afternoon in Barrow is a stark slap of urban reality. You are seeing thousands of terraced houses, the characteristic row houses of the Victorian era, lined up in long, dense, and monotonous rows that are dizzying. They were once a symbol of pride for the English working class, but now, under the pale sun and the salt-laden air from the sea, they resemble old soldiers abandoned after a long-finished war. Walking through the narrow alleys behind the rows of houses, you will see a truth that statistics often try to smooth over. The peeling brick walls, thick green moss clinging to the cracks, and the musty dampness rising from the ground like a heavy breath of the past. Barrow is in the top 3% of areas with the worst living conditions in England. And standing here, I understand why. These houses are not just old, they are being eroded. Do you see those windows boarded up tightly? People call it a boarded-up house. They look like blind eyes, no longer able to see into the future. In a town that contributes billions of pounds to defense, It's absurd that the value of many houses here is so low that their owners sometimes choose to abandon them rather than repair them. But look at the smaller details. A dilapidated pram left by the roadside. Piles of rubbish spontaneously appearing on street corners, and graffiti thickly covering the drab walls like a second skin. This is a place where the density of life has increased while urban services seem to have retreated over the past decade. According to the IMD index, Hindpool frequently ranks among the poorest wards in the UK in terms of income and health. The paradox is that just a few kilometers away, Dreadnought-class nuclear submarines are being filled with the most luxurious technologies, while here, people struggle with leaking water pipes and outdated heating systems. The system seems very good at protecting the sky, but often forgets to reinforce the leaky roofs below ground. The harshness in Barrow is not just the bone-chilling cold, but the gradual erosion of hope in the cramped living spaces. If you find these scenes too bleak, perhaps it's because the truth has not been filtered through any rose-colored lenses. To continue the journey of unraveling the contrasting colors in these forgotten lands with me, please consider subscribing to the channel, so we won't let these truths be swept away by the sea breeze. Now, as darkness begins to cover the red brick rooftops, the atmosphere in Barrow starts to transform. Have you ever wondered how one can laugh amidst such a bleak reality? Follow me, for we are about to step into the last fortress of warmth, the local pubs, where the stories of unsung heroes begin to be told. When night falls and the Irish sea breeze begins to whistle through the gaps of the red brick rows, Barrow does not sleep. It only shifts inside the thick brick walls of the local pubs. If daytime is the time to be enslaved by steel machines, then evening is when the locals reclaim their human side. I pushed the door and stepped into a small pub on Duke Street, and immediately, the biting cold was banished by a wave of warm air filled with the scent of beer and the strangely refreshing sound of laughter. Here, the pub is not just a place to drink, it is a psychological fortress, a shelter with a roof, where joy is handcrafted to combat the harshness of reality. Do you see the men sitting around the bar? The grease from the shipyard still lingers under their fingernails, and their skin seems to have been salted by the sea breeze for a lifetime. But in the dim yellow light, their faces shone with an incredible brightness. Barrow has a sad paradox. The rate of alcohol-related hospital admissions here is 1.5 times the national average. It's easy to look at that number and pass judgment on the lifestyle, but few ask why. When the outside world is a geographical dead end with news of recession and shortened lifespans, a cold pint is the cheapest way to buy a temporary escape. Beer here is not just a drink, it is a painkiller for souls too weary of the cold steel blocks. The sound in this pub is a strange mix, lively laughter and chatter in a thick Barovian accent interspersed with the clattering of dominoes on the worn wooden table. There is a strong sense of community that you can hardly find in modern cities like London or Manchester. When the whole world seems to have forgotten the existence of this peninsula, the people are forced to come together. They talk about football, about the ships that have been launched, and mock the policies from hundreds of miles away that are determining their fate with cold strokes of the pen. How graceful it is that a system can manage the precision of a nuclear warhead to the millimeter, yet let the mental health of an entire town drift along with strong drinks. Watching the glasses of beer dwindle, I understand that this is the only place in Barrow where the flow of money is not as important as the flow of stories. If you find these clips help you see through the fog of England. In 2026, don't hesitate to subscribe so we can have more unfiltered conversations like this in other lands. But enjoy this last warmth. If the daytime belongs to machines and the evening to strong drinks, then late at night at Barrow Station is where a silent migration of hope takes place. I am standing at the platform, watching young people with light backpacks, waiting for the last train heading toward Manchester or London. This is not a trip, this is an escape from the fateful dead end. Barrow is facing a brutal paradox. BAE Systems can provide thousands of jobs, but it cannot provide a life. For the Gen Z and Alpha generations born here, those nuclear steel blocks are not a source of pride, but rather metallic nooses. They see their fathers coughing after each shift, see their grandfathers passing away young from lung disease, and they wonder, is this the only script for my life? The rate at which young people are leaving the town has caused Barrow's population to continuously decline over the past decade. Why don't they stay? Because here, you only have two choices. Either become a part of the massive shipbuilding machine or become a part of the unemployment statistics. There is no room for dreams of art, startup technology, or creative economy. The system has established this place as a giant factory, and in a factory. One does not need unique individuals, one only needs durable screws. Do you see the bitterness? The government pours billions into military projects here, but local schools often find themselves on the list of budget shortfalls. Children in Barrow are taught how to become the best welders in the world, but are rarely encouraged to become world changers. This town is literally bleeding talent. The sharpest minds are buying one-way tickets to leave, leaving behind an increasingly aging community where dynamism is replaced by resignation, a town that builds submarines to protect the future of the nation, but seems to be losing its own future. Have you ever felt that the place you were born is both a cradle and a cage? Is the sacrifice of one generation to maintain nuclear security worth it when the price to pay is the emptiness in the souls of the next generation? If you are also standing at some platform of life and are torn between staying or leaving, hit the subscribe button. We will together seek answers in lands where choices are sometimes heavier than the steel blocks of Barrow. Because, after all, a country is truly safe only when its people no longer feel the need to flee from their own homeland. Because when the pub door closes and the last neon lights flicker out, Barrow will return you to another reality. When the pub door closed, Barrow returned you to the original reality, cold and full of menace. I stood at the train station, where the faint yellow lights reflected on the rusty tracks. No more laughter and chatter, only the sound of the wind whistling through the steel crevices and the train horn echoing from the port, the heavy breathing of an industrial giant on the brink of exhaustion. The harshness of midnight here does not come from the noise, but from the silence of a dead end. You will feel pitifully small when you realize. Behind you are billion-pound nuclear machines, but in front of you are poor streets boarded up. The night in Barrow is like a mirror reflecting the utmost irony. We build steel fortresses to protect the nation, yet leave the people who create them to struggle with the insecurity of making ends meet. Who will protect them from the feeling of being forgotten right in their own home? Barrow doesn't need pity. This place needs recognition for the tenacity of those who are holding on amidst the paradox, future technology and crumbling infrastructure. They are not the heroes in the headlines. They are the steel ghosts keeping the heart of this kingdom beating with their own lifespans. I leave you with a question. If the price of national security is the 13 years of life of shipbuilders, is this fortress truly sturdy? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section. If this unfiltered journey helps you see through the fog of England in 2026, please like and subscribe to continue with me to other forgotten lands. Your companionship is the reason these truths do not get blown away by the sea breeze. Goodbye from the farthest corner of England. Please note, the content of this video is based on personal experiences, real observations, and publicly available statistics. ONS, IMD, BAE Systems reports up to 2024 to 2026. The video is experiential in nature and reflects a societal perspective, not intended to target any specific individual or organization. Some images and locations may change over time,